Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where the Commander Clash crew talks all things Commander. And we got a fun one this week. We are talking the best new cards from the Final Fantasy set, and this set has a ton of sweet cards to talk about. But before we get into that, we got a crew to introduce, and we got a unique crew this week. Krim and Tomer are on the road this week, so we're joined by Morgan. How's it going today, Morgan?
Going pretty good. Lots of neat cards to talk about, and nothing to compare the flavor to as a non-Final Fantasy player. But cool cards are cool cards, so I'm excited to talk about it.
That's okay. You don't need to know the Final Fantasy flavor because we got Phil, well-known Final Fantasy expert, right, Phil?
So, outing you right now. Yeah, I am a Nintendo guy, so I can talk about the flavor. I gotta say, though, this might be one of the Universes Beyonds I really like. It feels like a little like Lord of the Rings, where it doesn't matter that it's a third party and it just fits.
Yeah,
so
it's still got
very
swords
excited.
and monsters and spirits and magic. It works.
It's no Doctor Who, but it's all right.
A sandwich with a rich guy eating a sandwich, yeah.
I'm waiting for the sandwich, and then we know we got a good Universes Beyond. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and I also don't really know Final Fantasy, although I did play for an hour on the Patreon with Richard and Grim, who really love Final Fantasy, so I guess I am the expert on the cast. But we're mostly going to focus on the magic implications of these cards. So if you want in-depth Final Fantasy analysis, I guess tune into the Goldfish podcast, because Richard and Grim really like to talk about Final Fantasy stuff. But we're going to mostly focus on what these cards can do in Commander. But before we get into that, we got some sponsors today. Our show is brought to you by Foil Armor. Do you have problems with your foils curling? Well, Foil Armor is the ultimate solution to flattening your foils. It's a two-way humidity pack that you simply put inside a airtight container with your cards, and Foil Armor will absorb and release moisture, making your cards completely flat. Put a pack in your storage box to keep your cards flat forever, and head over to foilarmor.com and use the code MTGGoldfish to get 15% off. And our show's also brought to you by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. If you ever get tired of the hassles of buy listing, you can skip them with Card Conduit. You can use their curated service where you send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more, and pay just a 5% service fee. And if you want to do a bit of work, you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. Either way, you're going to get a detailed report with the results in a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, it's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you to our sponsors for supporting this show. And now it's time for the comment of the week. So last week, we talked about cards that are so good, they might actually get you killed in a game of Commander. And our top comment comes from 4C Focus. Let's go with that. At 4C Focus says, Richard watching this, look at what they needed to mimic a fraction of my power. It was a very Richard-y topic.
He was like that in the group chat today, talking about Final Fantasy cards. Like, everyone's like, oh, this card seems really good. He's like, that's trash. And I was like, the public misses this.
I know Richard he is the same behind the scenes, too. It is not just for show. That's just who Richard is. Anyway, let's talk some Final Fantasy cards. And we got a pretty big list to get through. And let's kick things off with Morgan. Morgan, why don't you give us a Final Fantasy card that's going to be good?
Yeah, so my first card is going to be Sid Freeflier Pilot. It's a human warrior pilot for 1 and a white, 2/2. Equipment and vehicle spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. It has Jump, which is flavor text / not, which says during your turn it has flying. And then you can pay to tap it to return a target equipment or vehicle card from your graveyard to your hand. So I think as a commander, it's not bad as an equipment commander or a vehicle commander. You're probably better off with like SRAM or something that, actually draws you cards if you want to go mono white in either of those archetypes. But I think it's going to go in the 99 of a lot of vehicle decks and a lot of equipment decks. I personally really like vehicle decks. That's one of those archetypes that every time that there's, new ones to brew around, I'm constantly tinkering around, doing new brews of vehicle decks. And equipment decks are also really fun. Voltron-y builds, really fun. The fact that it's an okay thing to carry your equipments because it has flying, and it's really good recursion as well as ramp. So I think it's going to go in the 99 of a lot of decks. What do you guys think about Sid?
Pretty
I like Sid
interesting.
quite a bit too.
Yeah,
Go
having
ahead, Phil.
the Electromancer effect pretty much for another art type. But yeah, in the command zone, is that a... Did we have this before? Am I missing something? 2 mana, reduce card types.
Not at
That's...
2 mana. I know there's Danitha Capashen Paragon
Oh,
from
yeah.
from Dominaria
That's
that's like
3.
3 mana, and it gives your ores and equipments cost 1 less.
No, that one's
There's a
pretty good.
non-legendary one from Assassin's Creed. It's a Boros Bureau Headmaster, I think it is. But that's not a commander. So yeah, if you want this effect from your commander, this is the new cheapest way to like have this effect.
Like, these are only good on turn 2, I think. Or like best on turn 2, and you kind of make sure that it's on turn 2. We're not yet at... I still think that 1 mana dog commander would be insane because of this reason, but having this on turn 2 every time is
Well,
pretty consistent.
I actually don't think that's the case. I think that the last ability makes it better in the late game because after a board wipe
it's
or
still
something,
good
you
in
get
the
a
late
bunch
game.
of your a bunch of your stuff gets blown up. It's still an okay card in the late game because you can get some stuff back that got blown up or looted away or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that flexibility of it. Like on turn 2, it's going to be at its bestest ramp, but then later they're more likely to have stuff that died or whatever got destroyed, and you're going to be able to get it back from the graveyard. So it seems like it should be relevant throughout the game. Personally, I'm kind of mid on it as a commander. Like, to me, it's kind of a boring commander in some ways. Like, yes, it ramps and it's like generates card advantage, so it's good, but I'm more excited to play it in the 99. I think in the 99, if you're playing any sort of like equipment deck, Nahiris or whatever, Captain Americas or Surgwins, or like there's not as many of them, but vehicle decks, Greasefang, Shikori, and so forth, I think I'd play this in the 99 pretty much every time as one of my ramp spells. And like you said, because of jump, it's actually not the worst thing to put equipment on.
I just realized though, Baral was a 2 mana thing that reduces.
For instance and sorceries.
But Baral was banned in Brawl, so it's gotta be good, right?
Yeah.
Everyone
just assumes you're playing counterspell tribal, though. I would not recommend.
Yup. Anyway, let's keep moving on. Phil, why don't you hit us up with a Final Fantasy card?
All right, I got a card here that sparked a conversation in our group, and I don't know, we can repeat it here. It is Lifestream's Blessing. 6 mana, draw X cards where X is the greatest power among creatures you controlled as you cast the spell. And if the spell was cast from exile, you gain twice X life. And the way to cast it from exile is Foretell for 5. So you can exile it from your hand for 2 mana and then in another turn pay 5. Then you draw X card and gain twice X life. And it's an instant. And you can't really interact with it because it's on cast and you can cascade into it. I'm kind of so the way this thing started is with Rishka's expertise, Season of Gathering, I think last March of the Ends, we got so many effects now that draw
Return of the Wild
based
Speaker is
on
other big one,
I guess. Do you still play this? And I think this might actually be one of the bigger ones. I think Rishka's expertise and Season of Gathering are probably still better, unless you need big toughness, then it's the end.
This one, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you too, is how do you rank these in the hierarchy of these, like draw equal to power, I guess Slash March Lenses, toughness spells? There's like 4 of them that I play constantly. If I'm playing a green deck with big creatures, I'm pretty much playing at least 3 of those effects in my deck. I always play Rishkar's Expertise. I always play Return to the Wild Speaker. And then I usually have like a Last March of the Ends or like some 5-mana Garruk sometimes, depending on the deck. Like, I feel like this is on the same level as those cards. Like, it's at least it's very close. I put a lot of value into the incidental life gain, and the fact that it's instant speed is actually pretty nice. I'm imagining, like, in a game of Commander, if you're casting this and you have like a 6-power creature or whatever, you're also going to gain 12 life. That's actually a meaningful swing. I really like Commander cards that incidentally gain me life, because I just hate being that person that's like at 10 when everyone else is at 35. It just feels so bad when you're like in the danger zone. So I feel like this might actually be one of the best ones. And I feel like I'm pretty sure this in Return of the Wild Speaker are the only 2 that are instant speed, which is also kind of a huge upgrade compared to something like Rishkar's Expertise or Lash March Lance. Not that those cards are bad, because they also have a lot of upside, but I feel like this card's super playable, and I'd put it in a lot of decks.
I put it in Maelstrom Wanderer for sure.
Oh, yeah. Maelstrom Wanderer specifically, or Emoti, those like Cascade Matter kind of commanders are really good because that counts as casting from exile if you hit this. So then you don't have to
Nice wording.
slow roll it with the foretell. So I have a Yargle and Multani commander deck that runs all of these effects because that's just hilarious.
Yes.
And so this is obviously going to go in there. And the question I had for myself was, do I cut one of those other ones to make room for this, or just cut something else? And I think that's the answer, because all of them are a little bit different. And while I do think that this one is maybe a little bit better than those other ones, they're all pretty dang close. But the instant speed, flexibility on this one's really nice. It's on cast, so even if they remove your big creature, you still get to draw those cards. And then a decent amount of the time, you're going to be able to gain life off of this. And I agree. I think just playing like a handful of cards in a deck that will gain you a little bit of life over the course of the game is often the difference between life and death, especially when you have all your fetch lands, your shock lands. You're doing a lot of damage to yourself, man. So I actually, it's probably one of the better ones. And the interesting question is, do you just run all of them, or are we at the point where you have to start thinking about, okay, I can't run all of these? So that's the interesting part for me.
It's getting very close to that point. If we're not to that point yet, we're getting close to the point, because I feel like it's one of those effects that if I'm playing a big green commander deck, I really got to have at least one of them. Like, I want to draw at least one of them.
Right.
But then, like, honestly, as much as I love drawing cards, if you draw 10 off the first one, do you really need the second one most games? Probably
You
not. Like, I'm not going to
expertise.
complain.
Riskard's expertise. The free spell is after it is Return of the Wild Speaker. You're gaming, yeah.
just keep going. You got to have that reliquary tower. But I do think we're getting close to the point of cutting some of them. But I don't think this would be the one I would cut in most decks.
No,
I think in most decks, this is probably still to make it for me.
The clause of among creatures you control as you cast this spell. And it's an instant, so this is the safest one for sure, I think.
So that
I guess
means-
Season
let
of
me-
Gathering is another one that does something else.
Seasons of Gathering
Yeah.
is flexible.
Also
It
crazy
is flexible
art.
because you can kind of overrun with it or blow up artifacts and enchantments.
Right.
So, Phil, just so this is clear to everyone, so like Rishkar's expertise, if you have one, 6-power creature and you cast Rishkar's expertise and it gets killed with it on the stack, you don't draw anything, right? But with this, if I'm reading this properly, you actually would still draw the cards because it's based on when you cast it, not when it resolves.
Kind of boring, honestly. I don't really like this wording, but it is better. But it does feel
It's
a
more
little
powerful.
Yeah, it just not as magic-y. I guess it's to avoid feel bads for new players or something. That's
Yeah.
kind of like the trade-off you do with these spells. But I don't want to
Yeah.
complain about it. But I hope this isn't the new norm.
Wizards really doesn't like spells fizzling anymore. If you read any modal spell printed in like the last 2 or 3 years, like in the old days, you would have modal spells that like if your opponent kills one thing, it fizzles all of your effects of your like 7-mana spell. That does not happen anymore. They go out of their way to word this so that doesn't happen, which is someone who's played Magic for a long time. It does feel a little bit like watered down, I guess, but I also think it probably makes the game play better for like the average player or whatever who's just gonna like feel really bad when they get got by this like kind of arcane rule that probably isn't very intuitive. So it's probably for the best, but yeah, it is definitely a noticeable change. But let's keep moving on. I got a really good one. This card, they just previewed this one recently, and I'm gonna play this one in a lot of blue decks, and that's Relms Sketching. And this card is kind of beautifully simple. 4-mana sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature or land. And for me, land is the huge one here. Like, I really value ramp that doesn't put mana rocks on the battlefield because I just hate getting blown out by Vandal Blasts and Farewells and so forth. And I really like effects that copy lands. Like, we've seen this from the Commander Clash meta. It's gotten a little bit less so now that Richard's not there because Richard always had all the sweet utility lands. But it's very powerful to be able to copy your opponent's lands because if they play a Cabal Coffers, they play a Nykthos, they play whatever, you're able to snag that utility land. So I know that 4 mana is a little bit steep for ramp. Like, we have copy land, which is 3 mana. That's kind of like more the going rate. But I think the upside of this card, being able to not only copy a land, but if there's a good creature on the battlefield, you can clone that. If there's a big artifact, you can clone that. And then you get all the fill synergies of triggering Caretaker's talents and so forth. I feel like this is just like a staple level card for me. I think this is going to be like in mono blue in my ramp package pretty much every single time. But curious what you guys think about this one. Am I overrating it? It is 4 mana.
I love token copies of stuff but why doesn't it say enchantment? I want to copy Caretaker's Talent and Doubling Season. You can't copy the best stuff with it. Why?
That's probably because it breaks Arena. If you start copying that stuff, that you can have
for the best.
This gotta include enchantments in this.
I do think it's better than Copyland, but Copyland also reads as perfectly playable, and I feel like I don't see it that often. I know Seth's run it a handful of times on Clash.
I run it in Mono Blue.
Yeah, it still gets swept up in Farewell, Austere Command. It still gets blown up because it's an enchantment. So Realm Sketching does seem like a step up because it's a sorcery. I think what really puts it in the ballpark of being playable is, even though it's 4 mana, is that it's so flexible. Yeah, sorry, Phil, it doesn't hit enchantments, but being able to, it is ramp. It can hit lands, and there's a lot of cool utility lands in Commander, which is also nice. But the flexibility of sometimes there's a busted artifact, sometimes there's a busted creature.
Yep.
And that just seems pretty nice. So the flexibility is what puts it in the realm of possibility of being playable. And some percentage of the time you're going to choose land, and it's ramp.
Yeah, Richard mentioned bounce lands in our group chat, and that's
not bad.
That is pretty realistic to pull off, I think. And that is, like, in the decks, do you play... Yeah, blue kind of needs bounce lands, right, to ramp and have consistency. I don't know. It seems like a thing that happens a lot to copy a bounce land. Ramp to draw a card or something. I don't know how you calculate this. That might be a little optimistic.
I think Richard overhypes
that.
Like, I don't think that like a bounce land is literally drawing a card, but I mean, it's in that same like ballpark of power. I think it's like, it's not the worst way of thinking about it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to hit something better than bounce land anyway. Like, I really want that Nykthos or the Coffers, or like with 4 players in Commander, someone should have a good land to hit. And plus, like you said, you can hit other stuff too, which it just makes this card really flexible. Like, the floor seems high to me, since worst case, someone Wrath, there's nothing on board, you just copy the best land. And then the ceiling is like copying your opponent's Consecrated Sphinx or like some huge bomb and just like going to win the game. So I really like this one a lot. And I also like just how simple it is. So many of these cards are so wordy, but this one's like just very simple and straightforward. But
that's true.
Let's keep moving on. Morgan, what do you got for us?
So next up, I got Lulu Stern Guardian, which is a legendary human wizard for 2 and a blue. It's a 2/3, and whenever an opponent attacks you, you choose target creature attacking you and put a down counter on it, and then you could pay 3 and a blue to proliferate. So this isn't going to save you from just your opponent swinging out for lethal, right? They're still getting the damage in. But if you get this down early, I think it doesn't play that much differently than like a Propaganda or a Ghostly Prison, something like that. Because what's going to end up happening is that they have to think twice about whether or not they're going to attack you, because you're going to tap down and keep tap down any of their creatures. And I think the most obvious home for this is Proliferate decks, because 4 mana to proliferate is kind of steep. That doesn't seem very likely. It's nice that the option's there. But if you just have other cards in your deck that are incidentally going to be proliferating, you can just keep their scariest things tapped down, buy you some more time. That seems pretty good. So in any kind of Pillow 40 decks is probably okay, but it's going to be really good in the counters / proliferate kind of decks. It, again, doesn't save you from lethal, but Propaganda also usually doesn't save you from lethal. They'll usually just be like, well, I got lethal, I'll just pay the mana, whatever. So I think it fills a similar role, and there's some added upside that it's a creature, and specifically a small creature. So if you're playing like all the group, the like Pillow 40 stuff together, you're probably in white, which means that it's Sun Titanable, it's triggering your creature draw stuff. So there is added upside that's also on a creature, as opposed to some of the other options that are like this, where it's enchantments.
How big of a deterrent do you think this is, Phil? Like, so if this is on the battlefield, are you like not attacking that person because of the sun counter?
Like, anyway.
But well, you're the worst person to ask this question to. Yeah, you're like, well, I'm casting a ramp spell. I'm drawing with caretakers. But seriously, from what I've seen in Commander, I would agree. I think from what I've seen in Commander, it does not take much of an incentive to get someone to attack away from you. Like, people, it's not a huge deal, right? It's your creature's tapped, and it's going to be tapped down for an additional turn, and I guess there's the risk that you pay for to proliferate, which I think that's the power of the card. You don't really want to activate that proliferate ability, but just the threat makes people think even more before they attack you, because they're like, oh my god, what if he has nothing better to do, and they start proliferating, and I never get my commander back or something. So there is risk that your opponent could do that, even though you don't really want to spend 4 mana to proliferate. But I think it'll actually be enough in a lot of decks. I think if you have synergies for it, it's even better. But I think you could just play this like a propaganda or a ghostly prison, and yeah, it doesn't save you from lethal, but it's going to gain you a lot of life throughout the course of the game.
Yeah.
I wish it was Azorius Scarlet. Like, every creature in this set is legendary, so I guess that's just a flavor thing here.
Would you
in Azorius
ever play this as your commander?
Yeah, maybe like a chill pillow fort commander. Just see how much of a deterrent this is, and then
You
win
probably
with a combo or
could.
something.
You probably could make a commander deck with it, like have a win con be like some kind of combo, so this is just like buying you time. But then also mono blue has
It is
blue does have a lot of the move counters around stuff, so even though it itself is not quickly putting stun counters on things, you could theoretically move counters around. So I think it's more of a 99 card. I wouldn't ever build it as a commander, but I think I think there is a deck you could build with it as the commander that would make sense.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where I'm at. I do think, I'm trying to remember if I'm missing anything. Is there another legend that is repeatable proliferate? I know we have non-legends, like Viral Drake does that. Yawgmoth, I guess, you have to discard a card, but that is repeatable proliferate. With this, though, like, if you make infinite mana, you also get infinite proliferate, which could be relevant for some, like, janky win cons or whatever, if you're trying to Helix Pinnacle or, like, whatever. So stuff like, but it's like, there could be some fun build arounds there. So if I was going to play as my commander, I'd probably try to go that direction. But yeah, it seems like a good 99 card mostly. All right, Phil, you're up. What do you got?
All right. I got a card here that I hope is good. It is very cute. It is a little on the sandwich side, though. It's Tataru Taru. Correct. She's holding a present that's close to a sandwich. There might be a sandwich in there. It's a 2-mana 0/3 draft.
Who gives a sandwich?
When it enters, you draw a card, and target opponent may draw a card, and then Scion's Secretary. Okay, that's just flavor text. Whenever an opponent draws a card, if it isn't that player's turn, create a tap treasure. This ability triggers only once each turn. I hope this is good. How much do people draw if it's not their turn? It is not like Orcish Bowmasters where they have to draw additional cards. Do you have to build around this, or do people brainstorm end of turn and you gain a treasure? Like, once you get, I think it's already fine as like a spirited companion that creates a treasure and a card draw, and we've seen Richard navigate card draw to opponents without too much downside. So I think it's already okay as like an early blink thing. But how many cards do people draw outside of their turn? If this triggers twice,
it really
it's very good.
Well, wow, I'm already blocked it out of my head since it's banned this season. The white enchantment that they just took off the Game Changers list for some reason. Trouble in Pairs. Yeah, that's it depends on if they have Trouble in Pairs.
Oh my god.
We also have Ristic Study House banned. Like, if those cards are in your playgroup, this is going to pop off pretty much every turn, I think, or like very close to that. So I think it kind of depends on what your playgroup's playing. But like you said, I think it's just good enough on its own. Like, I imagine you, like, it's only 2 mana. It comes down, it draws you a card. If you target me with it and I'm your opponent, I am also going to draw that card. So you're going to get at least 1 treasure. Isn't a 2-drop that comes down and draws you a card and makes a treasure? Like, that already seems good enough. So otherwise, I see any, like, it is a tap treasure, that is true. But then any additional treasures are just upside. The thing's only 2 mana. Like, if I end up making 3 or 4 treasures with this, it feels like the most busted card in my deck or something if it ends up popping off. So I feel like this is a staple level card.
Yeah, I think you could just play it fairly like that, especially because I think more often than you realize people are drawing cards on turns that aren't their own. So I think it's actually probably just generically good. but it's in white and it's a small guy. So again, triggering all your weenie draws. You can get it back with your Sun Titans, and then the deck I really want to put it in is I have a Kenrith Politics deck where I use Kenrith to make deals with it. And so at that point, then I can force people to draw cards on other people's turns as well. So then you're really going ham with it. Also, being in white means it's in the blink colors, which then is pretty insane there too. It's one of the better spirited companions in that scenario. But yeah, I'm really high on this one. I think you probably could just play it generically.
I also really like that it's a 0/3 because I think part of the upsides of playing cards like Spirited Companion, these early game cycling creatures, is just they keep you from being the blood bag. Like, people want to be triggering their Ragavans, triggering their whatever in the early game, and just having a body on the battlefield often means whoever didn't play a body, which a lot of times is me, which is why I try to play these cards more often, but that is the person that's going to get attacked, right? When you want to trigger your stuff in the early game. And as a 0/3, this actually is like pretty good at soaking up damage, but unlike a Wall of Omens or something, it doesn't have defenders, so you can still put an equipment on it and go attacking later in the game. So I think the stats are like actually kind of relevant to some extent for like an early game Spirited Companion type card.
I remember the other thing I was going to say about this is that in modern Magic, card draw is not really the problem. We're all drawing a million cards no matter what your colors are. We are still kind of pinched on mana though if you're not in green. This is probably going to make you enough treasures that is going to put you in a good spot to deploy all those extra cards you're drawing. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's not as good as Smothering Tithe, but I wonder if it's gonna I wonder if it's gonna be like almost like that level of toxicity. I don't think it's ever gonna be as bad because it's a lot easier to get rid of than Smothering Tithe. It's not gonna make as many treasures as Smothering Tithe, but now that I think about it, I'm like,
nah. I think it's like Lothar.
It's like it's baby's first Smothering Tithe.
Nah, I think it's not that crazy. Like Lothar was, yes, but it's Orzhov, so we don't see it too much. I would play it in any deck just generically because whenever a player plays their second spell, you lose a life and create a treasure. This one I think happens less often, but it's cool. It's only 2 mana. It draws a card. I still like it. It is also very cute. If that
it is cute.
That's yeah. There might be.
I think the once per turn restriction keeps it from being too Smothering Tithe,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like
That's
hopefully,
true.
like Smothering Tithe, if only had 1 treasure a turn, I think it would be fine. Like I don't think anyone would complain about it, but still seems like a pretty good card.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep moving on. I got another one. This one's for you, Phil. I really want to know what you think about this card because you, like me, really like making tokens of things, and this is kind of a neat way to make a token of things. It's Espers to Magicite. I don't know what Espers is in Final Fantasy, but I do know it's on a lot of non-Esper cards in this set, which is kind of weird.
Not confusing
But
at all.
Espers, yes, not even a little. Espers to Magicite. 4 mana instant says exile each opponent's graveyard. When you do, choose up to 1 target creature card exiled this way. Create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's an artifact and loses all other card types. So I know, what's that mana rock you always play, Phil? That like
It's
copies
Machine
something
God's
and then we
Effigy, yeah.
forget about it. And this is like kind of Machine God's Effigy. Plus you exile your opponent's graveyard. It is 4 mana, but 4 mana to make a artifact token copy of the best creature in your opponent's graveyard. And
Instant
kind of
speed.
tricking yourself into getting some graveyard hate in your deck, which is always a good thing. Like, we always regret not having more graveyard hate in a lot of matches, and this is like a cool way that you can play more graveyard hate. I feel like this card has potential to be really good. Obviously, if the graveyard gets locked down or no one's playing good creatures, you're going to be kind of sad, but I figure in like the typical commander game, in the mid game and the late game, someone should have a good creature, and then I've seen like that mana rock you play be incredibly powerful because you get this creature ability, like a static ability or something, but it's on an artifact, which makes it weird to kill, and people forget about it. Next thing you know, it's just taking over the game. So what do you think of this one, Phil? Is this like a good card?
I don't know why it doesn't. I guess so. It doesn't exile your own graveyard, but it's so awkward that you have to hope for the opponents to have good stuff. Because Machine God's Effigy, you can build around it and have like combos
that's a
with
good
it,
point.
or like make sure that it hits something. With this, you also can't hit commanders with this, or like very unlikely to hit
You
commanders
shouldn't
with
be
this.
able to, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish it did anything. Exile each opponent. It just exiles the grave. I think that the
So
way
if
to
it
do something cool is to maybe in mill decks. Yes.
Okay, so if you're actively filling your opponent's graveyard, so you think it'd be better if it hit your graveyard too, so then you could build around it more, even
Yeah,
though
and
it's
maybe
kind of
mill some
annoying that you lose
cards.
your graveyard, but
Yeah, if it milled like 3 from each player, then exile everything from each player, and then you do it,
Now we're
then it
cooking.
would be on my list.
what do you think of this one, Morgan? You
I
don't look
mean,
enthused.
the ceiling is so cool, like Machine God's Effigy, but Machine God's Effigy is so much easier to just make work. Like this card seems like if you're playing a mill deck, then it's pretty good. If you have graveyard decks or self mill decks of some kind in your play group that you're actively playing with a lot, this is probably worth it because they probably have a lot of juice a lot of the time. But otherwise, I feel like it's just too inconsistent. It reminds me a lot of the Golgari Shelob. I used to have a deck around that, and I would play a bunch of fight spells, and then you make food tokens, copies of other people. You're like, oh, everyone's playing a bunch of value stuff, so surely this is going to have lots and lots of cool, fun targets. And in reality, it's like it's too hard to rely on other people because you just don't know what they're doing, and I feel like this is even harder to do than the Shelob. So in the right deck, it's sweet, but I feel like it's not like a generically good black card by any means.
That is a good point that outside of mill or something similar, while the ceiling is really high, the floor is pretty low. Like there's going to be times when there's nothing good in the graveyards and this is just a dead card in your hand. So yeah, maybe it's more of like a card for mill decks or specific archetypes, but it still seems like a really cool design. I just love the ability to turn a creature into a token artifact. Like we're getting more and more effects like that, and this is another unique one. So hard to build around, but in the right shell, I think it can work still. Well, let's keep moving on. Morgan, what's another Final Fantasy card?
Well, apparently I'm really excited about these legendary creatures. Next up, I got Locke Treasure
All the creatures
Hunter.
are legendary, Morgan.
That's
I hate
a
to
good-
break it to
that's a
you,
good
but they're all
point.
just legendary.
That's a good point. So this one is for 1, a black and a red. It's a 2/3 human rogue that can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. And then it has Mug. Whenever it attacks, each player mills a card. Now we're cooking, all right? That's a win con. And then if a land card was milled this way, create a treasure token. Until end of turn, you may cast a spell from among those cards. So I think as a commander, this is probably kind of hard to build around because you have to probably do like extra combats or something like that. And at that point, you're probably looking into like doing infinite extra combats. And then, oh, come on, man, don't do that to me. But I think just in the 99 of a lot of decks, this is a really fun card. I think cards that let you play cards from other people's decks are just kind of goofy and kind of fun, and I like jamming them in my decks when I can. So I think if you have, like, I think maybe an Ishin is probably okay. That's a pretty decent attack trigger to double up. It's a rogue, so some rogue decks are in red. If you have treasure payoffs like Prosper, something like that, Play from Exile also would fit the Prosper category, but there's other treasure decks other than Prosper. So I think in the 99 of a lot of decks, this is a lot of fun. I just like these style of cards to let you play other cards from other people's decks. That's not the strongest thing you can do, obviously, because so much of Commander is built around synergy, so you're probably better off just playing things from your own deck than someone else's deck, but it's still fun. And it's probably going to give you some ramp. That's also cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, odds are you should mill a land, right? If you're milling each player, that's 4 players. Just mathematically, most of the time, you should hit at least 1 land there. So you should be getting a treasure each turn, which is pretty good. And then getting to cast the cards for free, especially in some sort of theft deck, seems especially powerful, but it is just like a fun ability. The other thing we didn't mention, it's also a human. I feel like Rakdos Rogues is a little bit weird, but there's a lot of 5-color human deck, multicolor human decks, Caesar, Legion's Emperor, and all the stuff that we got from
Krim's got
going back
Mardu
to
humans.
Innistrad. Krim's got the Mardu human deck. In anything like that, I think you play just like kind of for value. It seems good enough as a 3-drop, but what do you think of this one, Phil?
It might be a little ambitious, but if you do, what's the Heartless Summonings, do the 2-mana thing that gives everything -1/-1, but creatures cost less. I don't know. I want to give it 0 power somehow to make sure that I can
just so nothing can
always
nothing
hit
can block
because
it.
2-3. I don't know.
You could always
dice
just buff
pretty
your
quickly.
opponent's creatures.
Oh my god, yeah.
Well,
It is. Like once if it hits or like if it can safely attack, it is so cool. Right?
Wait,
If a
shouldn't-
land card was moved this way, okay, it's not
Shouldn't
for
it usually be able to safely attack? I feel like
I think so.
so.
Because
it
it's
can't
got the
be
extra
blocked by
Probably
things
is.
with greater
It's got
power.
the extra toughness.
So like,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Can't
So I
look
feel like
I guess a couple of
usually
1/1s are
someone-
scary.
a couple, yes. If you run into the token deck or a weenie deck, then it's bad. But I would think like with 3 opponents, there's probably at least one person who's playing like a big creature deck or something that you can get in and get your triggers off of. And then it's nice that even if you hit that person, it works with everyone's deck because you're milling everyone. You can still cast it, so I can hit Tomer and cast one of Phil's cards or whatever, which is kind of a nice upside.
Can't play the lands, sadly. That would probably be
Yeah.
too good.
I think it makes
don't
up
know.
for it that it will make treasures though. So
Yeah,
like you still get
that's
some
the
mana out of
deal,
it.
yeah.
I mean, yes, it would be better if you could also play the lands, but
That's a cool card. That's it's so funny because when my brain sees a legend, I think, oh, it's for commander. But then in this set, like everything is a legend. So I gotta retrain my brain that
Yeah.
like I don't think all of these were designed to be commanders. Like even though they're legendary, they're just like named characters or whatever. But
yeah, I think as a commander this would be kind of hard mode. But in the 99, I think it goes in a lot of decks.
yeah, I would agree with that. Phil, back around to you. What do you got for us?
Right. We got a kind of a boring pick here, but I think it will be one of the things that I'll play looking at our stats the most in the upcoming years, because we do play a lot of 5-color, and we got Starting Town. It is a land town. I guess town is a thing now. This land enters tapped unless it's your first, second, or third turn in the game. It taps for colorless, and it also pay 1 life, tap for mana of any color, so City of Brass. And we do play City of Brass, and what's the other one?
Mana Confluence.
Confluence. And this one is, so it's a fast land, but it's a fast land that's 5-color. That seems like just an auto include in 5-color deck, so it is boring, but it is worth mentioning that this is probably going to be super playable, I think. It's not your third land, so if you do like extra land stuff, it's not, you can still play it on turn 3, which you will see 10 cards or something, like 11 cards. It should happen relatively consistently. Wait, is it more likely that you get screwed with Temple of the False God or have this and that? I think it's close. I don't know.
It might be close. I feel like this is the first time we've seen this restriction for coming into play untapped. If we had a land that cares about what
in Alchemy.
turn it is for
We
coming
don't
into play
talk
untapped.
about
Oh,
Alchemy.
right, in Alchemy. Honestly, I don't think I'll play this card.
Oh,
I don't really play these cards.
Even in
I feel like,
5-color?
okay, bear with me. If I'm in 5-color, I play 10 fetch lands, I play 10 shock lands, I play 5-ish triomes, I play 5-ish surveil lands, and that already gets me to 30, and then I got like some MDFCs and basics I gotta fit in there somehow. So I've just found
Plus any
that
utility lands you want for
if
your
I'm-
archetype.
if I'm going full on fetch land mana base, like if you're not playing all the fetch lands, which I know from looking at our viewer decks and stuff, most people are not playing 10 fetch lands, 10 shock lands in all their commander decks. So I think this card goes way up in value as like kind of a budget option if you're not playing that mana base. But I don't think I would have room to play this in the like full on 10 fetch land mana base personally, even though I do think it's the best version of the effect that we've seen so far. I really like that you can make generic mana with it in the late game when you don't need to make colored mana because you have enough other colored sources, unlike Mana Confluence and City of Brass, where you're taking one every single time from those. This one, you can take one in the early game when you need the colored mana, and then in the late game, use it for generic mana and not have to pay the life.
You might be, now that you say it, there's 2 types of 5-color mana bases I play, and one of them is straight up 5-color if it's with some jank and I need all the cards to facilitate the jank. But the other one is like 5-color green, where I have all the forests, all the fetches and stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, this doesn't fit in the actual very good one with the green stuff. But if you're straight up 5-color and your commander is Wooburg and you really need that, I play a lot of City of Brass, Confluence, 5-color decks, especially the janky ones. So I mean, I'm gonna play this probably over Confluence, over City of Brass, but I'm probably gonna play all of them if I need to.
Yeah, I think you can play all of them. I think that's a good point about the different ways to build 5-color mana bases. I think I just default to, like, I'm going to play all the fetches, play all the forests, play my nature's lures and so forth. So I very rarely end up going the, like, mana confluence route, but I think that is a legit way to build your 5-color mana bases too. What do you think about this one, Morgan?
Well, first of all, I know that in the grand scheme of things, you could say that this is a budget replacement to those super optimized
It's not very
5-color
budget.
mana bases that we see on Clash, but this is still pre-ordering for $17.
Yeah.
And I feel like since we're about to lose a bunch of our dual lands in Standard, that this is probably
Yeah,
going to
this
stay
might
expensive-ish.
Yep.
And I also think that even if you are pinched for money, I think you can build better 5-color mana bases on a budget in Commander. I don't think you need this. I don't like, do you ever play like the Blooming Marshes or anything like the fast lands? Do you ever play those in Commander? I don't. Like, I
in
feel like
two-color decks sometimes. Like in
sometimes.
the Lowness deck when I'm low to the ground.
Yeah, I guess maybe in aggro decks they're probably okay, but I rarely play them in Commander because usually it's the first couple turns of the game that I'm not that worried about. It's the later in the game where it's like, if I top deck a land here, or, you know, I need to curve into my big scary threat. Like, it's the later in the game that I care a little bit more about whether or not my stuff comes in untapped. I do like that it has the option of like the pain lands. Like later in the game, you don't actually have to take damage off of them. But again, unless we get some kind of payoff for towns, and like, do we have an evolving wilds that grabs towns? I don't think so. But if there's some kind of town payoff, sure. Maybe if you're a deck that specifically cares about hurting yourself, then maybe it's fine. But that's so niche, man. So I don't think this is a Commander card.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a good point about Standard. I think this is going to be like very important to Standard, so it probably is still going to be $10 or $20. Like, I would not be, at least in the short term, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it's not that great of a budget replacement.
Maybe I'm overestimating it, but now that you say that town thing, we don't have the full set yet.
There's got to be.
And yeah,
I watched. Did you watch the intro stream?
No.
They definitely talked about towns, comparing them to like
there's gotta be a
gates and like
reason.
being a
Yeah.
type. So I feel like there's got to be some sort of support. How legit that support is, who knows? But there's got to be something, right? They wouldn't make this whole new land type and just have it be completely meaningless or well, maybe they would just make it for flavor purposes. Actually, now that I think about
Well,
it,
and it's also possible that like this is something they develop later. Like even if we don't get it now, they might later. Like when they first made deserts, there wasn't like the best or most interesting desert payoffs. But then fast forward a few years, then we get Sand Scout. So you know it could happen someday, even if not now.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, lots of games have towns in them, right? So we could see this showing up in future. Maybe it's like the land version of Heroes. I feel like they're using Hero as a way to tie all the Universes Beyond sets together, because every Universes Beyond is going to have a hero of some type. Maybe that's going to be the same thing. Maybe we'll have towns all over Universes Beyond.
Yeah, more towns here. The adventure lands are also towns, whatever that means. So,
well, let's keep moving on. I got one that I'm very interested in. I'm curious what you guys think about this card. So there's a bunch of legends I like, but I'm intrigued by this new equipment. So one of the mechanics of this set is Job Select, which is a new like 4 Mirrodin ability where if you play an equipment, it comes along with a 1/1 hero token that you attach it to. And the equipment I'm interested in is Blue Mage's Cane. So this is a 3-mana Job Select equipment. So it comes in with a 1/1 on it. It says equip creature gets +0/+2. It is a wizard's in addition to its other types, and it has whenever this creature attacks, exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from defending player's graveyard. If you do copy it, you may cast that copy by paying 3 rather than its mana cost, and then it equips for 2 mana. So essentially you get a 3-mana 1/3 that when it attacks, you get to cast any instant or sorcery from the defending player's graveyard for 3 mana, which hopefully means you're casting some like ultimatum or huge thing. But worst case, I guess if you could end up paying a tax on a brainstorm or a swords or something, but you get to cast anything from the graveyard. And then if that 1/1 dies, you can just move this around to something else for 2 mana. So it's still relatively cheap to equip. So I know we talked earlier about the card that exiles the graveyard and then makes a token. And one of the problems we had with it was, well, you can't really build your opponent's deck for them, right? You can't control what they're playing. Maybe there's nothing good in the graveyard. Is this the same problem? Or is this going to be like, I feel like most decks, like people are casting spells, even just getting a Nature's Lore or like something like that is going to be really powerful. I feel like this card could be really good, but I'm curious what you guys think. I haven't seen much talk about it.
I have
mean-
overlooked this, but it has the same problem, yeah.
I actually think it might be a little bit better, and maybe I'm a hypocrite for saying that, but it's only 3 mana to get down on the board, and I feel like most decks are running some amount of instants and sorcery, so I think early game, this is probably not doing anything. If you're not some kind of mill deck, this probably doesn't really do much of anything early game, but late game, I really like the possibilities of, hitting someone's else's... Maybe you're... Like, if you're a mono blue deck and there's a green player at the table, hit their Risk Guard's expertise. That's kind of nice that you got like a big burst card draw. You could hit someone else's Farewell to clean up the board. So I think late game, this probably plays maybe a little bit better on the average table than that other card that we were talking about. And I think this is also just like a kind of a fun... like value card. Like most of the time when I'm building decks, my problem is I have too many cards and I'm trying to make cuts. But every now and then I have a deck where I just need to add a couple more cards. And this is a card that if I was playing blue, I'm like, well, that might be fun. But I think it also, if you care about equipments, if you care about because it makes something a wizard. If you're a wizard deck, you probably already have wizards. It does boost the toughness. It doesn't have to actually hit. So you just have to like hope the creature is able to attack. It doesn't have to actually deal damage to do it. Have you guys ever played the blue vehicle that does something similar like this? I think it's called like Crim played it recently.
Oh, the limousine, right?
Yeah, there's a vehicle that's in blue that does something similar to this, and I've played that a couple times, and it feels okay in like the mid to late game. So I feel like this is probably similar. So I'd be curious to try it.
It is. I think it's most of the time you get a rampant growth, and then
I'm kind of okay with that, though.
Yeah, probably. I don't know, 5 mana rampant growth. You get the body out of it, but I'm not too okay with it.
Yeah, the first one, I guess, is kind of expensive. Yeah,
I'm kind of burned with the blue primordial. Like when it enters, you reanimate the instant or sorcery out of every player's graveyard, and it's usually you get one cool thing and then a rampant growth, which is also kind of cool.
But attached to a body, isn't that still okay?
Yeah, maybe you got to pay for it in this case.
I could also imagine, like, in the late game, it's not that bad that you could cast this for 3, equip it to something that's not summoning sick for 2, and swing and cast something else for 3. If you're actually getting, like, a Rise of the Dark Realms or an Ultimatum style effect, that could still be worth it, I think, in the late game, even though it's a lot of mana when you add that all together, but...
You have already tanked the Rise of the Dark Realm on Ultimatum, so if you're still alive after this...
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
Also, Rise doesn't No, wait. A lot of good spells exile themselves, so there's a cutoff at what you can get there.
Could you imagine the reverse infinite turn loop where you just keep stealing your opponent's time more?
Oh, right, it doesn't exile them.
Oh, my.
Oh, it does exile too.
It does exile, yeah. Oh. But... all right, let's do one more round. One more round of Final Fantasy cards. What do you got, Morgan?
All right, my last pick's kind of a meme, but this is Summoning Materia. This is for 2 and a green. It's a equipment that says you may look at the top card of your library anytime, and as long as this equipment is attached to a creature, you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has vigilance, and also can tap for a green mana, turns it into a mana dork. Equip cost of 2. I mentioned recently on the podcast that I brewed a deck that I really want to actually build in paper. That's just look at the top card of my library tribal, and this is going in there. This card is sweet. That's the main reason I added it. But I actually do think that it's probably okay if you're some kind of deck that cares about like mana dork kind of effects, because you're going to be able to like maybe have some kind of creature on tap shenanigans. It's kind of cool that you can get some extra use out of that. If you're a creature heavy deck, you're going to be able to cast stuff from the top of your deck pretty consistently. And these kind of effects, I feel like, are basically like card draw in the right deck. So that seems really cool. And because you're in green, it's not the most mana efficient option. There are so many cards that do similar things like this nowadays. But because you're in green, I don't think you're actually going to be pinched on the mana. So I kind of dig it. It's not the flashiest card or the best card by any means, but it's got homes. I think it's fun.
Yeah, it is. I actually completely overlooked this card until you mentioned it. This is the first time I'm reading it. I actually really like it, though. I don't think we've seen we've seen a lot of cards recently that let you play off the top of your deck. That's become like a reoccurring theme in the last couple of years. I don't think we have an equipment that does it though, unless I'm missing it. So this is like that effect that you can stone forge, or we get the new
reality
cloud
chip.
in the Final Fantasy. Ooh, reality chip. I guess that reality chip is an equipment. You're right. Okay, maybe this is our second equipment that does this. But yeah, I think it's a cool effect just because of those synergies. And yeah, if you're playing a bunch of creatures, you should be able to get value out of it.
Yeah, once they play good, they play really good. Like if you hit 2 or 3 creatures and then elf ball off, it feels pretty good. So even
And
though
it
we
makes
got
a
a
little
lot
mana.
of this, yeah,
Vigilance is nice. You can
always a
attack
good
and still
effect.
make mana post combat.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like it. Well, let's move on. Phil, final pick. What do you got?
Wait, are you picking the white enchantment token thing? Because otherwise
Oh, you can snap
All right.
it. Go for it.
Champions from Beyond. It is white X enchantment. And when it enters, create X, the 1/1 colorless hero creature tokens. That's almost playable, I think. X2 X tokens. It is not an instant, but it is in the right deck. This already serves a role. And then it has Light Party. Wait, how do you pronounce? Do you say Light Party? Is it a
Yeah.
Light Party?
I think it's like
I don't know.
not that many people in the party apparently.
Oh, I
that they're
see. The
going
next one
for.
is full pie. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's Light Party. Wait, that is not whatever. Whenever
That's
you
just a Ray,
attack with whenever you attack with 4 or more creatures, scry 2, then draw a card. Also, this by itself would almost be playable. Especially a couple of years ago, we would have said, well, that's a white card, what the hell? And then full party, and that these all stack up. Whenever you attack with 8 or more creatures, those creatures get +4/+4 until end of turn. So you can just cast this for X equals 0 and have the light and the full party mode. But then you can also create your party of hero. Oh, that's kind of flavorful, actually. I get this flavor. So you can create your own party, and then if you pay enough and have a full party, even though it is not the party mechanic, whatever. Yeah, this just seems generically awesome, especially if you make some value out of tokens, which I will do.
Yeah. I think this card's so good. I really like. So the token making part of the card, it's fine. Like
It's
we
okay.
have more efficient ways of doing it. We have instant speed at
Way
the same
better.
price,
Grand
or
Crescendo or
1
something.
mana, 1 an X. Yeah, there's
I still
there's
really
better
like
ways of
Secure
making
the Waste.
tokens.
Mhm.
Yeah, Secure the Waste is a really good one. White Sun Zenith I still play on occasion because you make 2/2s. But Champions from Beyond, the thing I love about this is you can just cast it for 2 mana. Like if you build up a big board, we've seen, I think going back to Richard, like I definitely remember several Commander Clash games where Richard just kind of builds up a board and then drops a Beastmaster's Ascension,
yeah.
which when you attack with 7 things, all your stuff gets +5/+5, like very similar but in green. And then you just die, or like a Coat of Arms where you wait until you get the big board and then you play it. The fact that this is just 2 mana to drop it if you don't make any tokens really scares me. So I feel like in any deck that's going wide, you're playing some sort of token deck, a Jetmir, Rin and Siri or whatever, I think this card's worth playing. Even if you don't make tokens with it most of the time, you can just drop it as card draw and then wait a little bit longer and drop it as your finisher and just kind of kill your opponent in one big attack. So I think the card's oddly flexible for a token producer, but I'm mostly excited just to run it out as a 2-mana enchantment as like a finisher.
I'll let the viewers know that this is the card that we were talking about at the beginning that Richard was poo-pooing, which I think is ironic because it seems like a Richard card.
It seems like
4
a
is a lot
card.
to get it started for creatures.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
The token mode is not too bad, considering that the rest is also
No.
not too bad, and the other one is also a Beastmaster Ascension, pretty much. So I think the complete package is
Well,
very good. I don't know if I'm just over. It is a bad sign if Richard says this because he might be right. That
he
is
might be right,
always an option.
but a lot of the other X spell token makers are only good late game when you have the mana to pump into them. This one
Mhm.
is good at any point in the game. You could drop this
for
turn
creatures,
2.
though.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
for
yeah.
creatures you don't have those turn 2. So
Yeah,
it
but
does.
you'll get there. But you'll
need some
get there if
setup.
you're a go wide deck. You will get there. Like I have a deck that is just Naya go wide stuff, and it has like some token shenanigans, but not a lot. It's mostly I'm just playing a bunch of value-y 1 and 2 mana creatures, And it's not hard for me to get up to 4 creatures, and it's not that hard either to get up to 8 creatures just because I have a lot of protection in the deck too, so I can survive and dodge a lot of the board wipes. So I actually think that token decks specifically are going to love this because it's going to be super easy to get up to 8 creatures. But I think just a lot of go wide decks or creature matters, small weenie kind of decks, you're for sure going to be able to get the light party mode really easily. And Scry 2 is really nice. That actually lets you, like, if there's something specific you need to find, that Scry 2 is really nice that you get that before your draw. And then I think full party isn't that unrealistic either. So it's not the most cost efficient way to make tokens, but I really like it in go wide decks.
It's preordain the scry and draw, like one of the most powerful cantrips that we've seen in Magic. And really, if you're playing it for 2 mana, how many cards do you need to draw to make it worth it? Maybe twice? Like, I think if you trigger the card draw twice and you had 2 mana for a draw 2 and you got to scry 2 between each of that, like, that's probably enough to make it worth 2 mana. And if you get 3 or 4 cards off of this, then it's kind of like absurd. So yeah, I'm gonna play in a lot of my go wide decks going forward. We'll see who ends up being right, but I think it's worth trying at least. Well, all right. Last card of our Final Fantasy cast, and we couldn't do a whole best cards in Final Fantasy without talking about a Chocobo. So I picked Traveling Chocobo, which I think is just such a cool card. It's a 3 mana 3/2. It's a bird. Says you can look at the top card of your library, you can play lands and cast bird spells from the top of your library. And then if a land or a bird you control entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, the ability triggers an additional time. So obviously, birds are not the strongest creature type in Commander. Like, I've seen Richard play his birds deck. Every once in a while, someone has like a janky bird brew. We'll probably see more of them thanks to some of these Final Fantasy cards where there's some bird legends and so forth. But I'm not really thinking of this as a bird card. I'm thinking of this as just like Landfall Panharmonicon. Just 3 mana doubling any trigger caused by a land entering the battlefield seems incredibly powerful once you start adding like Lotus Cobras and Tireless Trackers. I feel like you can set up some really massive, like almost combo style turns with this. Yes, you can play a 5 mana Elish Norn or whatever and also double your triggers, but this is so cheap at 3 mana. Then you also get, like we talked about earlier, Sun Titan synergies and so forth for having the mana value being low enough. But I feel like in any sort of land shenanigan deck, this is just like an ultra staple that's going to be really powerful. But what do you think? You like your Tireless Trackers, Phil? Where are you at with Traveling Chocobo?
I am very scared of its price tag because I should put it at least in Necrobloom. I think the play lands off the top of your library makes it like the double land trigger is crazy for 3 mana, but the fact that it allows you to pop off like extra land drops and stuff. I need this, but it's currently pre-selling at $75. Good thing I opened
It's one of the most
golden
expensive
one of the
cards,
golden
yeah.
ones, right in my. Wait, it's not even pre-release kits. Do I get collector boosters? I think that set is super expensive.
Wait,
I don't know.
You opened a golden Chocobo already?
All right. From the future here saying, yes, I will. Please, God.
Yeah.
I guess
Manifest
10
yeah.
grand or something.
Yeah, probably sell it and then get
a new house.
Oh yeah,
A car.
I don't know. Like I don't know if I would play it in Omnath because my Omnath deck is more like big spells, but at least in Necrobloom. Oh my god. Yeah. It's also a funny looking bird. And I will never trigger the bird thing. Wait, it's
I don't care about the bird text, but
I gotta look for random birds, but I don't think I'll ever trigger it.
I will say in the Final Fantasy set, Landfall is kind of the gimmick of the Chocobos. So there are other Final Fantasy cards that have like Landfall and or birds. So you might be able to sneak some birds into your Landfall deck just based on the Final Fantasy cards. But yeah, I'm mostly just interested in the land off the top and the land doubling. But what do you think, Morgan?
Yeah, the bird text is it's a trap. Don't fall for it. I will say that I think birds got stronger in this set because there's another Chocobo that is like a legendary and it also cares about lands. Like you said, Chocobos in the set seem to care about lands. So I think there is a bird deck you could build with all the Chocobos that would actually be like relatively powerful. But it really is a trap. It's the doubling up your landfall triggers. Like your Avenger of Zendikar is going to pop off even harder. Your Tatiova is going to draw even more cards and gain more life. So it's crazy. I think if you're playing a landfall deck, assuming it comes down in price, which the hope is that because the set is so popular, enough of it'll get opened that there will be enough of them in the wild that hopefully it doesn't stay super expensive forever. But who knows? So that's the hope, though. And it's a goofy looking guy. He's fun. I like him.
It's crazy
it's
how
just fun to say Chocobo.
Yeah,
like it's a good word. Like that is just a good word to say. Yeah.
So it's better to be able to cast or play lands from the graveyard, right? Because of fetch lands, and you can do strip mine tricks.
Yes.
Because Ancient Green Warden is 6 mana. It is a 5/7 reach, sure, but it says you can play lands from your graveyard, and then also the double trigger of landfall, not of birds though. But that's double the mana, and it's already, this one's like $15, although I do have the extended art here. I don't know how expensive it is these days, but yeah, I think the Chocobo is gonna be expensive, sadly. And also,
the Chocobo is half the mana and also theoretically lets you dig deeper into your deck. So it is worth
it's not
comparing them, but they are different enough that, I don't know.
Off the top, it can fix mana flooding. It's like, it is pretty good.
Playing off the top is still good. Yeah, playing off the graveyard is probably better, but the big difference is just 3 mana versus 6 mana. The other thing with the price is I could see this seeing play in 60-card formats, which if this actually takes off in 60-card formats, then the price is
a cool format, though.
Absolutely absurd.
That's probably
Chocobos.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are our top cards from Final Fantasy. You've seen our list, the cards we're hyped about. Let us know in the comments what cards you're hyped about. There's so many cool cards from this set that we could probably go on for another like 3 hours just going through really sweet cards from the set. But let us know what you think. What are your favorite Final Fantasy cards? And thanks for listening. Thanks to everyone for hanging out. Thanks to our sponsors for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week with another one. So until then, have a great week, everyone. And this is a crew signing out.